You are tuned in to the LowBand Show, broadcasting from the storm drains under the big city, where a tunnel crew runs this booth on salvaged gear, pipes humming, steady water dripping, piping surface science and tech news on a low-band signal through the drains. I'm your host, Max Hertz. Welcome in. Here's what we do. We take real science and tech news from the surface, summarize it, then go deeper to educate, entertain, and shed light on what's in store for our collective future. News from the net, clear signal, and a little tunnel. If you came for hype, you took a wrong turn at the storm drain.
Welcome in, everyone. Glad you could join us down here. Wiz, great to have you in the booth today.
Good to be here, Max. I'm ready to dive in when you are.
Excellent. Today we're tracking heavy regulatory clamps, security fallout, and silicon ambitions. First, we'll discuss the upcoming U.S. sales ban on Polestar vehicles, starting in model year 2027. And then Spain's new mandate forcing telecom carriers to keep mobile networks running during blackouts. We'll also look at Microsoft extending Windows 10 support for an extra year, and the latest security incident involving customer support data at LastPass. And finally, we'll cover OpenAI's move into custom silicon. Lots of ground to cover, so let's get into it. This one made me sit up. A major automaker is facing a U.S. sales ban. Auto Evolution reports on a decision under the Connected Vehicle Rule from January 14, 2025. Polestar is banned from selling cars in the U.S. starting model year 2027. Wiz, this is a massive escalation.
No kidding. This isn't just a tariff. It's an administrative red light. They aren't banning the steel. They're banning the silicon and the software.
Exactly. The report states, the Bureau of Industry and Security denied Polestar an authorization under the Connected Vehicle Rule. No new 2027 models will set wheels on American soil.
So existing stock can sell, but the future is canceled. If your car's brain is connected to a foreign adversary, you don't get to operate.
Let's look at why. The article explains, the Connected Vehicle Rule restricts the import and sale of vehicles equipped with vehicle connectivity systems and automated driving systems tied to foreign adversaries. Wiz, for listeners who may not know, what is a vehicle connectivity system?
Think of GPS, cellular modems, or over-the-air update systems. If that data pipe goes back to a Geely server in China, regulators see it as a vulnerability.
And they view the threat as active. The rule classifies modern vehicles as mobile data centers and is designed to protect national security by keeping sensitive driver data out of the hands of foreign governments.
Exactly. A modern EV is a giant smartphone on wheels, packing cameras and microphones. Commerce is worried about remote shutdown capabilities and mass surveillance.
But here's the twist. Polestar is owned by Chinese auto giant Geely, which has also been the parent company of Volvo since 2010. However, Volvo has recently been granted authorization to sell connected vehicles in the United States.
Volvo must have convinced regulators that their data flows are ring-fenced and secure. Polestar, on the other hand, couldn't make that case.
So Polestar is preparing its exit from the U.S. market. The article notes, Polestar sold 5,384 cars in the U.S. in 2025, with 60,119 units sold globally.
An exit hurts, but they only sold 9% of their cars here last year. It makes sense to double down on friendlier territory, rather than fight an uphill battle.
There is still plenty of uncertainty about how other brands will navigate these rules toward 2027. We'll track how this reshapes the EV landscape. That's a wrap. Back after the break. The headline promises a lot. Let's see what the regulations actually require. Reuters reported on June 25, 2026, that Spain is preparing a royal decree to force carriers to keep mobile networks active during power outages. Wiz, this is about treating connectivity as a true critical utility.
Exactly. We treat cell towers like optional luxuries until the grid goes down, and suddenly nobody can call for emergency help. It's a massive regulatory shift.
Here's what's being demanded of operators. Mobile network operators and infrastructure companies will need to install batteries or other backups to keep service active for at least 4 hours during a blackout. And this applies to any business serving at least 500,000 users.
4 hours is a modest baseline, but it's a huge step up from nothing. For the big operators, this means upgrading thousands of sites with serious backup power, not just cheap batteries.
The decree is a direct reaction to a severe crisis. The text states, the move is in response to the widespread blackout across the Iberian Peninsula in 2025, which left more than 50 million people without power. Wiz, for listeners who might not know, what exactly does the Iberian Peninsula cover?
It's the southwest corner of Europe, primarily Spain and Portugal. When their joint grid failed back in 2025, it exposed how fragile their telecom infrastructure really is.
And the implementation timeline is quite aggressive. According to the text, half of the population will need to be covered by this failsafe within the first year, then 65% in the second year, and 3/4 in the third.
A staged rollout is practical, but covering half the population in 1 year is going to be a logistical nightmare. They'll have to prioritize high-density urban areas first.
Whether operators can pull off this massive deployment without pass-through costs to consumers remains to be seen. We'll track how Spain handles the rollout. Back after this. The fight here is really about whether millions of PCs are destined for the landfill. Ars Technica reports that Microsoft has extended free Windows 10 security updates for consumers by another year, past the original October 12, 2026 deadline. Wiz, this is a major policy shift.
It's a massive capitulation. Microsoft wanted everyone on Windows 11 yesterday, but reality disagreed. They realize abandoning hundreds of millions of good machines is a PR nightmare they can't afford.
Ars Technica notes, the prevalence of Windows across so many devices and form factors has given Microsoft a massive customer base for decades, but it has also stymied the company's efforts to roll out new operating systems.
Exactly. It's the Windows XP problem. They can't turn off the tap when 1/4 of desktop PCs run the older OS. You can't force upgrades by decree with hardware requirements this restrictive.
The report states, Windows 11 required some users to buy new PCs with specific CPU technologies and a Trusted Platform Module, TPM. Wiz, for listeners who may not know, what is a TPM and why is it a roadblock?
It's a dedicated security chip on the motherboard handling encryption keys. Microsoft made it a hard requirement, instantly orphaning millions of fast, functional computers that simply lacked that specific silicon.
And upgrading is getting harder. The report notes, the AI-driven shortage of storage and memory has made system upgrades vastly more expensive, potentially slowing upgrades.
A brutal double whammy. Restrictive requirements plus soaring hardware costs. Upgrading is financially painful in 2026. People look at their working Windows 10 machines and decide to wait.
And Windows 10 remains stubbornly popular. According to the text, Windows 10 is still running on about 26% of PCs, while Windows 11 sits at 72%.
That's hundreds of millions of active machines. Microsoft had to act. Cutting support would leave 1/4 of the PC ecosystem open to security exploits, which is a catastrophe for everyone.
Whether this 1-year extension is enough to transition those users is still anyone's guess. We'll see if they push the deadline again. That's our segment. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. TechCrunch reported on June 23, 2026. Here's the headline. LastPass customer support case data stolen in third-party breach. Wiz, this is a major trust issue.
Another entry for the incident log. It seems the supply chain is the gift that keeps on giving for threat actors looking for a soft entry point.
The report notes, LastPass says hackers stole customers' personal information, support case records, and sales data by breaching market research partner Klue. The password manager told TechCrunch that its own systems and password vaults were unaffected.
The vaults are safe, but the metadata is gone. That is cold comfort when attackers now have a roadmap of who you are and when you had trouble accessing your account.
Wiz, help us unpack that, however. What's the real implication when a company says vaults are safe, but customer support case data is gone?
It means the vault is locked, but the attackers have your phone number, email, and the keys to draft incredibly convincing phishing campaigns tailored to your specific support issues.
According to the text, in a blog post that shared information about the incident, LastPass said the hackers took customers' names, phone numbers, email addresses, and physical addresses. It's not yet known what was in the contents of customer support tickets.
Names, phone numbers, and email addresses. That is high-value fuel for a social engineering attack.
Let's look at customers in this context. Is this isolated to enterprise clients, or does it affect everyday Vault users?
The text says they took sales-related data and support tickets. This means anyone who is engaged with their support desk or sales team is a potential target.
It remains unknown exactly how many users' tickets were exposed in this Klue breach. We'll watch for further disclosures as the investigation continues. Back after this. Here's the breakdown. OpenAI is shifting from buying off-the-shelf silicon to designing its own custom hardware. CNBC reports that on June 25, 2026, OpenAI and Broadcom unveiled Jalapeno, OpenAI's first custom AI chip. Wiz, this is about clawing back margin from NVIDIA.
Exactly. It's about margins and supply chain control. They're trying to build the full stack to escape the single vendor bottleneck, even if they have to sacrifice raw general-purpose flexibility.
Right. CNBC notes, the chip with Broadcom is an ASIC, which industry experts say is less flexible than NVIDIA's GPU, but is also less expensive and can be designed for specific AI tasks. Wiz, for listeners who may not know, what exactly is an ASIC?
An application-specific integrated circuit is silicon hardwired for one job, running model inference, rather than a general-purpose chip. It's highly optimized, running queries faster with less power, less flexibility, but a massive efficiency boost.
And OpenAI claims they designed it in 9 months, alongside large parts of the computer system where it will be used. They're aiming for initial deployment of the Jalapeno chips by the end of 2026.
9 months is a blistering pace for silicon tape-out, suggesting Broadcom's IP blocks did the heavy lifting. But delivering a physical sample is a long way from deployment at hyperscale. Building the systems around it will be the real trial.
Whether they can scale Jalapeno fast enough to dent their massive compute costs is still anyone's guess. We'll track how this rollout goes. We'll be right back. That's a wrap on our storyboard for today. We started with Polestar preparing its exit from the U.S. market, leaving plenty of uncertainty about how other automakers will navigate those 2027 rules. Then we looked at Spain's aggressive timeline for mobile network backup power, and whether carriers can deliver that failsafe without passing the costs down to consumers. We also saw Microsoft adding another year to Windows 10 updates, a necessary move given the operating system still runs on about 26% of PCs. And on the security and silicon fronts, we tracked the fallout from the LastPass support breach and OpenAI's ambitious timeline for its custom Jalapeno chip. We have more build and science threads queued up, and we'll keep tracking these rollouts as the data comes in. We'll pick up the thread when the next episode drops. It's certainly a lot to consider. If we missed an angle or you have further questions on these topics, please drop us a comment. We read them down here in the tunnel. And if this signal helped you stay informed, a like or subscribe keeps the pipes humming. More surface news and deeper dives are coming through the grate soon. Until then, stay curious, and we'll catch you next time on the LowBand Show.